river. It hits you differently each time. And what I want to encourage you today is to dig in. We certainly won't have enough time to get to all the content we want, but with our Masterclass series coming up, we're going to have plenty of time. We're going to do this a lot. We're going to do it often. We're going to keep pouring into you so you can pour into your people. Trent, blessing and honor to be with you today. So excited for what you're going to bring. What are you most excited to share as we kick off your section here?
Hey, thanks for asking, Johnny, and thanks for just a great introduction. You always make me feel strong and awesome. So thanks for that. By the way, not just the Trent Booth podcast, but here we are. Here are all the leaders featured. Some of you saw this in the loop, but just want to make sure that you check out the Changing Lives, Selling Knives podcast. Again, go ahead and like and share that and rate it, because it definitely helps the podcast, and I think it helps our people find it later as well. To John's point, we're going to keep this masterclass going. I was just reflecting just for a moment, throwing down some peanuts, and I'm just so excited about this masterclass series that's coming up. Brian Hurlman, the week after SLC, we're going to go at 1 o'clock Eastern Time, 10 o'clock Pacific, and we're going to go for at least 90 minutes. I got a feeling with Hurlman, he'll probably set the bar a little north of 90. And folks, if you need to jump off of that, you can jump off. Keep in mind, if you can't make it, let's say you got a class or whatever, interview, it'll be recorded, and we're going to get these turned around as soon as humanly possible, including today's. Wow, how about John Wasserman again and Drew Frank? And I'm just so grateful for these guys and how they showed up, and for how you're showing up, and so many cameras on. I know we're 6 pages deep, but I just saw so many cameras on, and just being able to follow so many of you. So just really excited. And I see Mike Abramowitz is here. Can't wait for his session on the 10th. Folks, again, we want long-form, informal learning. Today it's going to be a little bit more drinking from the fire hose, as I'm just trying to bring a lot of content to you. And I don't want to sacrifice too much. So I'm going to really try and distill the 2 master classes down into kind of one today, but we'll have a reload. It'll probably be December, or we may add a bonus session that's not on a Tuesday, just so we can get through this. And there's a lot of other great people, Kate Vassy included, Katie Capone and Angie McDougall, that we're going to put onto this list as well. So very excited for some of the people coming up. So this is a question that I ask myself every year. I started asking it in 2012. Why is talking about emotional intelligence important in 2012? And as I think about this even now, I'm going to invite you to take just a couple of moments to journal. Just write down what emerges for you when you say, why is talking about emotional intelligence so important, necessary even in 2020? What emerges for you? If you could drop even a thought or two in the chat, I'm curious. Why is talking about emotional intelligence so important in 2020? What emerges for you? I would love to hear from a couple of you. Loretta DiCiano says, emotions are running high right now. Yeah, in some cases that is really true. I know even for me, some days my emotions aren't running high. In fact, they're running pretty low. I connect with many people like you do outside the business, and one of them was really surprised that they were having a struggle. They're having a conflict in the office. I was like, of course you are. I mean, we're in a global pandemic, and some people have been working from home for 6 months. Some people are working from their bedroom 24/7, and that's hard. That takes a toll on us right now. And to not acknowledge that, we're going to get sniped. Josh Thayer says emotional intelligence is the difference between short-term success and long-term sustained success. I love this. I see Maddie Bruner says it's the main connection you have with your team virtually. I would support that. It was important in 2012 because I remember thinking back to when I was 25 and running a district office, and I didn't really have words for it at the time, but the reality is you can't give what you don't have. It's hard to pour from an empty bucket. So for us to kind of catch up with self and make sure we're okay, you think about the type of margins that we have, they're so fine. They're thin. So for us to not be at our best emotionally, it's going to be harder to connect with people, whether we're virtual or in person. I might even suggest that This is more relevant conversation than we started having it 8 years ago. Hamza says you need to learn how to work with people, not against them, which is so true. And yet I find myself working against the people I love the most sometimes. And if I'm not aware and I can't self-regulate, against them really is the word. I'm going to strive against my 16-year-old son. I'm going to fight with my wife of 20 years. Oliver Carlson says, managing how we respond to challenges. I love this. Patrick Moore, it's necessary for survival in a virtual world. Yeah. Again, we really felt it was important 8 years ago when we started talking about it. It seems more important now. And let me also say this, folks. Some of you going, man, I've been studying this for 4 or 5 years pretty intensely, and I don't feel like I'm that much better at it than before. Or maybe you're even saying, I'm still having challenges navigating my emotional state. Or maybe you're even saying, hey, I still blow up at people. I still get frustrated. You're not alone. Something Jake Kuhn said one time at a meeting. He says, just because you taught it doesn't mean they got it. And I don't think he wrote it ahead of time. It just kind of came out. But I've been quoting him for years there because it's so true. Just because I teach emotional intelligence doesn't mean I got it. And even if I got it for a minute, that doesn't mean I have it forever. This is one that's going to be a constant, long-term, and worthwhile and noble struggle. Rob Chung says 2020 is unprecedented, and you need to know what these new feelings are. How about that one? Maybe you're awesome at the old vector. This is a new vector. You're like, man, I would agree 100% with what Rob says here. Being able to make the best out of a challenging situation. Yeah. In fact, some of us are finding ways to even thrive, despite how we're feeling some days. There's some things that I got to say during the podcast that just reminded me, and I want you to hear them today. So some of these will be one-shots. You are not your feelings. And some of you need to hear that today. Some of you, you're good today, but you need to hear it eventually. And maybe you're good, but somebody that you work with needs to hear it. You are not your feelings. You're not your emotions. You're not your emotions when you're doing awesome, but you're also not your emotions when you're not feeling great either. Jesse says, emotional intelligence, EQ, is not getting taught in very many other places. I found that to be true as well. In fact, even at this meeting, we did make a conscious decision to give you some skills. This is a group that wants to grow. They want to learn. They want to be voracious, to just input information. So we started. We started with content. Let's give you food. Now that your bellies are full on that level, let me also share this. If you cannot regulate your emotional state, then no amount of skills or talent will be enough. If we can't get this one thing down, then no amount of income will be enough. In a world where there is a lot of uncertainty, I agree with you, Craig. Stepping out and journaling and spending a few moments of determining what I am certain of, it pressurizes me from the inside out. Cody Nichols says, I believe it directly correlates to maintaining mental health. I'd agree 100% there. That's a big topic, but I would suggest that if I'm at least dialing into how I'm doing, I've got a shot. Paul says, because in the day of social media where everything is electronic, communication skills are at an all-time low for this generation. Hard to argue that one. Bailey says, it gives us an opportunity to connect with a larger group of people. Also true. Dylan says, your mental state is more important than ever with quarantine going on. Let me also say this. If you can navigate and self-regulate your emotional state, and you can provide a superior service to others and pour into them from an altruistic and selfless way, you are going to wildly distinguish yourself from other people out there. I believe that we have an opportunity to really distinguish ourselves from other jobs out there, from other companies. Right at the beginning of this quarantine, the two words that emerged for me, one was compassion and one was empathy. I said, this is a time for compassion and for empathy. Empathy, putting myself in somebody else's shoes. How are they really feeling right now? Not just how would I feel if I was them. It's how do I think they are feeling right now? And identifying that and putting myself in that place, it's easier to bring compassion, to serve them, to try and help, just to come alongside for a little bit. Folks, if we can practice this at Vector, I believe it will wildly set up the next few years. People need emotional intelligence more than ever in this abundantly uncertain landscape. Brian Fitzgerald. Antonio says, there are more important pattern breaks which make emotions go wild. Triggering is one of those, right? People act based on emotion rather than logic most of the time. Also true. So, for example, it's logical for me to want to bring my best to training, but sometimes I don't feel awesome. And if I'm not aware of that and I'm not on top of that, my seminar might not grow great. In a virtual world, Liz John says, it's becoming increasingly more difficult to connect with your people. Let me also say this. There was times during this SLC already today where I forgot we were virtual. Anybody else? Does that resonate with anybody else here? I forgot. I was just getting awesome content like I would every year from Drew, and I forgot. I was staring at, I was actually transported to hanging out with Drew. I forgot I was in my bedroom with staring into a portal. I forgot. I felt there was a really powerful connection there. Drew and I are really good friends. What's interesting, though, is that even before quarantine, etc., because of distance, Drew and I largely forged that relationship virtually. Most of those were actually over the phone. It wasn't even via video conferences for coaching. That's something we get to do now. I think I shared the story last year. I'm going to share it again just to ensure that we drive this home. We can have robust, powerful connections with people virtually. Some of you know that I'm an ordained pastor, and I did a wedding for a couple last year. I do wedding coaching sessions with the couple beforehand. We did them all via Zoom. They lived an hour away. It just didn't make sense for us to get together in person. This had nothing to do with COVID. This is 18 months ago. And I walked up at the rehearsal space the day before the wedding, and the bride ran up and gave me a hug. And I gave her a hug back. I said, hey, it's good to see you. Actually, I said, I guess we're just kind of meeting for the first time. Sorry for the hug. And she goes, no. I feel like I know you. And I felt the same way. And frankly, we did. That soul connection went well beyond just having to be in person. It was forged virtually. And that's not the only one. Folks, I've lived away from my immediate family for my entire adult life. They've lived in Western Canada. I've been out in Eastern Canada or out here in New Jersey. And to be able to connect with people like I can with Zoom and even the phone technology, folks, you can absolutely go deep if we're paying attention, if we're watering that grass. Albert says the grass is always greenest where you water it. So I'm going to invite us today to spend some time thinking a little bit about what are the relationships that we could be investing in a little bit more, whether it's virtual or in person. I love Maria. She says, once you're aware, you've got a shot. Shab says, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that well. Shab, COVID has brought the world in an emotionally weakened state. Our reps and teams rely on the skills we teach to help them move through the world. I would say this too. I think we rely on each other to make sure we're doing okay. I'm hoping one of the takeaways today right now, even if we don't get a chance to really do the deep dive in relational wisdom, that you know who your tribe is. So even if we don't do the deep dive into the relational piece, I am inviting you to consider who are your people. Who are the ones that you're going to call when it's a tough day? Who are you going to call to celebrate when it's a great day? Who are you sending the random text of awesome to? Who are you growing in the business with? Who are you bringing along with you? I wish I could get to all these comments, but these are very, very rich. Why is talking about emotional intelligence today so important? Start, stop, continue is something that we started talking about years ago Originally, it was just the one question. It was, hey, what's something that you're not doing that if you were to start it would dramatically change your life? What's the one thing you could start? And even then, we would usually delve into a stop, even though we didn't have it quite labeled like this. We said, hey, some of you, you don't need to start something. You need to stop something. And some of you, in fact, all of you are doing something well. Let's identify that and make sure that the old cliche, it works so well, I stopped doing it, doesn't become a thing for you. By becoming consciously aware of something that is going well, we can double down on that and take it even higher, iterate it. Or at the very least, celebrate the fact that we are having some wins. Start, stop, keep continues to be an important, I would say, tool that you can use for you to dial in once a week at least and say, in the business, let's even just go there for a second. What is something I'm not doing right now that I need to start? And it could be something that you read from Drew. It could be something that you heard today, even from Was. But giving yourself an opportunity to pause and to think. Some of you saw the question I was asking of Drew earlier. It wasn't just, hey, don't just binge the content, the knowledge. Most of us don't have a knowledge problem per se. For many of us, it becomes a behavior problem. I know the things I should be doing. I'm not doing them. So get the content, listen to the Drew tapes again, watch, right, the Drew replays, watch the WAS replays, and make sure you're scheduling time to synthesize, scheduling time to take action on the things that you're learning. Take time to ask yourself, what do I need to stop doing? What are some of the things that are hurting me right now or slowing me down or causing drag in my life? What do I need to stop? If I was to ask this question in terms of connecting with people virtually, I'll invite you even now just to take a few moments, even if we don't share here or pause for that. What's something that you're doing well? Let's start with a continue. What's something you're doing well to connect with your reps and with your staff virtually? What's something you're doing well? Also invite you to consider what's something that you're not doing well. Perhaps you need to stop. For me, things emerge like being distracted. If I've mistakenly left my email or text app up while I'm coaching via Zoom, those will distract me while I'm coaching. The most important thing I could be doing when I'm connecting, whether it's virtual or in person, is give them my undivided attention. So I need to stop the distractions. In that case, that leads me to a start. I need to close out all the other apps while I'm coaching and just even decide to focus up. What I love about this exercise, folks, is it allows you to take action on content, information you already have, knowledge you already own, wisdom you already possess, maybe even things you've been awesome at in the past. So start, stop, continue. Just because we've seen it doesn't mean we're done. I've seen even people recently, like Michael Bromowitz has incorporated this with his reps at a team meeting, helping his people become consciously aware of their areas of opportunity, then shifts the responsibility from him to make them awesome to them to help move themselves forward, to get themselves unstuck. How much more satisfying is that? And by the way, it takes less energy from you. Asking this question helps you become a better leader. Asking this of yourself helps you level up personally and professionally. I do want to spend a moment here with relational wisdom. I just want to make sure I can see this and everybody can see it as well. Throw the hands up for me if you can see what I'm showing you, the relational wisdom piece. All right. This is going a little beyond emotional intelligence. I've typically in the last several years been walking you through. Let me just show you this. So I took the slide down. Emotional intelligence, self and others. And it's a quadrant, right? So we've got 4 different quadrants. Self and others, and really awareness and engagement. We've focused most of our time the last few years talking about self, getting aware of how I'm feeling, and then engaging with that to be able to move myself forward, or self-regulate, if you will. We've mentioned that it's a thing and spent a little bit of time on this. Leadership days, maybe we've delved a little bit deeper. But when it comes to others, being aware of what they're feeling, and then our ability to serve or to influence them well. Well, this year, in trying to level up, I discovered a program. His name is Ken Sande, and he was describing Relational Wisdom 360. And although this isn't necessarily new, it's a new label for, I think, ways that we've described things that are important. For example, the importance of becoming aware of what your core values are. So Ken Sande, instead of just having two hemispheres, has actually got a third piece of this. The relational wisdom piece of this, he's saying, yes, we've got self, yes, we've got others. We've also got this side of it, which is our values. Are you even values aware? He would call this remembering what you're all about, right? If I kind of use some vector term there, vector language. Values. Are you consciously aware, or are you thinking about what you value and what you're about? And once you're aware of that, are we doing it? There's a discipline component of that. Am I living in alignment? And this kind of is the way we've talked about the integrity gap, right? Do I know what I'm all about, and am I in alignment in terms of my behavior? What I believe and what I'm doing. So this is just another way of considering it. So if we were to go just deep dive for a second here on how can I level up my connection game in a virtual world, I would invite you to spend a couple of moments dropping some thoughts in the chat. How can I level up my connection game in a virtual world? What are some things I can do? I gave an idea earlier, but that's certainly by no means the best, or maybe even the only one. What are some thoughts that emerge for you when you consider what are some ways that I could level up my game in a virtual world? Damien is using the term sillier. We've described this before as being more playful. Being more playful. Dancing, music, memes, YouTube, games, backgrounds. Finding ways to just laugh and have some fun. I would say that fun isn't just a tool in our business, it's the vehicle. If the business is fun, you're going to want to be around it more. And it's not impossible to do in a virtual world, it's just different, and we've got to find new ways to do it. David Romero says, I could mail out gifts. Yeah, I love this. This is good wisdom. Josh Thayer says, make sure to greet everyone before starting a team meeting or training. So what I love here is the fact that he's picking up, okay, I would just start the meeting. Well, we would never do that in person. We would greet people or try to connect with them. Even today, some of you had to jump on late because maybe you're running an interview or something, but we spent a few moments connecting with the group before the session even started. And I would highly recommend that, Josh. I think that's an outstanding move. Napkin talk weekly with a rep. I love this. Napkin talk might take a different form, but really you can get the same things done. FaceTime PDI. Thanks, Larry. You know what's so funny is that for so many years, like PDI has been done over the phone, even though this technology has been available forever. Well, for several years. Things like FaceTime. My kid doesn't call his buddies; he FaceTimes them. Why would he ever just call them? It's funny. So really, there's an opportunity for us to have a massive upgrade. And it's not weird. Fun Zoom meeting backgrounds. Why not? I like this. It's come up twice now. Gain understanding of reps' love languages and CVIs in order to speak in languages they understand. What I love what Kristen is going for here is just finding ways to connect with her people in different ways. And here's what I love about this. If somebody watches this in 5 years and quarantine's done and COVID's not a thing anymore, that still is true, isn't it? Finding out what's important to them and finding ways to connect with them on their level remains important. Ashley's saying, always have the chat open. I love it. I understand that there would be some times to take the chat down, or maybe it could be a distraction. But it is in a different way, a way for us in real time, in a non-distracting way, or relatively non-distracting way, to be able to have collective wisdom all pooled in one spot. And even, some might even argue, it's even more engaging. How about intentional conversations not involving Cutco? Love that one from Mitch Stevens. A lot of Midwest chat on here. Let me go down. Voice messages. You know, one of the things that we've started doing is with buddies of mine, I'm sending voice memos. So instead of leaving a message when I call them, I'll send them a voice memo. Hans Hilton says reps love breakout rooms and getting to speak and to be heard. How great did that feel today? getting a chance to do that right at the beginning of the meeting. Maybe you met some people you haven't met before. There's no reason we can't do it virtually the same as if we're in person. Or maybe even, some might argue, it's easier to get in and out of those breakouts here. Sending thank you letters in the mail to people on our team. Appreciation appreciates. I agree with that, Christina, as well. Folks, I'll let you read the chat. And by the way, in case you weren't aware, there are 3 dots in the text box of that chat where you can save the chat. You get to keep all this stuff. There's a lot of wisdom in that chat there for us. What is your current personal growth curriculum? Do you know what you're going for? Do you know what you're learning next? Now, a lot of people I recognize would say, hey, based on Drew's thing, I'm going to go deep dive into the Drew stuff. That's awesome. Yes. Okay. I can totally support that. That said, do you know what the next ones are? Are you going to map it out in your schedule? Never before, well, has it been more important than now? Is this very simple wheel of life? The wheel of life. In fact, the True North exercise, I've tucked this away in the handouts folder, so I'll ask Shelby to post that link again. But people who perhaps have started studying this, or maybe started their True North, started defining what they value, and perhaps today when you see, hey man, having my values clear and spelled out allows me a shot to actually close that gap, the integrity gap or the values piece of that. So if there are 3 pieces of that wheel going beyond emotional intelligence to actually identifying what I believe in 6 key areas of life. Now, folks, these are suggestions. These are the ones that have served me since I was 25. Folks, here's what's funny. This is the work. This is the work that I wind up doing with my best coaching clients, in or out of Vector. My best coaching clients all need to define what they love, what they're all about in each of these areas. Because until we define what a 10 out of 10 in family is, how can I know how I'm doing? Or until I can define what 10 out of 10 looks like in finance, how can I know how I'm really doing? Or if I want to move from a 3 to a 4 in health. Education vocation is so much more than just Vector, man. It's this learning. It's this ongoing informal education. Social contributions, it goes so much more beyond just the money. Some of you have invested back into your communities. You're a coach or you're a tutor or you volunteer and you give back to the community. And it makes you better at your job. It makes you better at Vector. But also, I'm willing to bet you're one of the best volunteers there because of your Vector experience. All these areas intersect with one another. And we've been talking about this for years. What I love is the fact that Ken Sandy in his diagram talks about values. What are your values? Get clear on your values. That document, I was thinking of this morning. I was walking the dog. The document I completed when I was 25 years old on this level, I've been iterating it since then. It's very much a living document. I wouldn't say it's done. But it's still very, very relevant today. The things I believed at 25 are pretty much the same things I believe 2 decades later. Maybe I have better definition on certain topics even. Maybe I've leveled up and read some books on different areas. And I hope I say this every year at SLC. I hope you get bored of it. You should be reading books on not just leadership. You should be reading books on not just sales. You should be reading books on faith. You should be reading books on family or relationships, how to level up. You should be reading books on finance. WAS just dropped 2. Some of them have been recommended to you before. Some of you even own The Millionaire Next Door. Well, now's your excuse to put your curriculum together and start deciding what are the levels that I need to level up in. What are the other areas that I need to go deeper in? So I'll invite you, if you haven't yet done the Wheel of Life, or the True North exercise, to take a moment to be able to go deeper on that. I've been talking about this for years, and I'm surprised that it still yields benefits. My son listened to the podcast the other day, my podcast, with Dan Cassetta on Changing Lives, Selling Knives. And he said, Dad, this is the one thing he took away. He's like, Dad, I'm going to set an alarm 3 times a day. I want to figure out what my emotional state is. And just like many of you who have done this before, when the alarm goes off and you catch yourself in a great mood, it turns the bright mood even better. For some of us, if we've caught ourselves in a less than ideal mood, we've either been able to pivot and get out of that mood, or in certain cases recognize, all right, this is a bigger job. I'm not going to be able to just get out of that one, but I don't want to let how I'm feeling affect how I'm behaving. So I'm going to go play hurt. I got to go run training here, or I'm going to go have this conversation, or I'm going to go, you fill in the blank. I'm going to do the thing. And I don't have to feel awesome. Sometimes you act your way into feeling. But by being aware, you might make some different choices as you step forward in that moment. I might suggest that microjournaling in a COVID world might be the most important thing that you can do for mental health and just for self-regulation, just to make sure you got a shot going forward. I'm covering a lot of information in real quick time here, and I want to come up for air for just a little bit. If anybody's looking for clarification or for comments, or they want to go a little deeper on something that they've got in the Zoom there, I want to encourage you to actually either type it in again or throw up some jazz hands, and I'm sure somebody will be able to get to you. John Kane, you've been through the leadership course, man. Now we've been doing this formally, I guess, as the leadership development department since 2012, but yeah, for over 16 years since I moved down here to Jersey, we've locked arms with this. What are some thoughts here that, as I'm kind of going through this, that you think we should spend a little more time parked on? Or is there anything you're seeing from the chat that deserves a little extra time here?
I've been powerfully moved by the favorite things list. It's just such a simple thing, but the awareness that arises from that still impacts me in my journaling to this day. And I know it's been talked about before, but I think I'd love to see it. Give me the lightning round riff version of that. I'd love to hear it.
I appreciate that. Thanks, Johnny. Again, we're recognizing that with pilot sales managers here and vector managers, DMs in particular, are they're thriving. They're doing great right now. We actually have more attendees at this event than we've ever had at SLC. So I'm not assuming that everybody's heard this. So let me just give you at least the thumbnail sketch for the favorite things list. So the favorite things list, I think it was 1996. I was listening to Tony Robbins talking with Larry King about just making a list of things that make life taste good, smell good, feel good. What do you love to do? Rob Chung did this probably about 10 years ago with me at a Leadership Day event. And here's what started. I made that list of all the things I love doing. And I put everything on that list I could possibly think of. Everything from like even writing with a great quality pen into an awesome journal with a great quality pages as a lefty in particular, not bleeding onto my hand. It was like, oh man, I got a good pen. Life is good. I might put things on that list like, I meant to say this on the podcast. I tasted surf and turf for the first time as a Vector 19-year-old rep. Surf and turf, steak and lobster and red wine. I was like, well, those are new things for my favorite things list. They're even separate. I love lobster, I love red wine, and I love steak. And when you put all three of them together, they deserve a fourth line on my favorite things list. Favorite things list, like a Sunday afternoon nap. I like the grogginess after I wake up from that afternoon nap. While we're talking about that, I love fresh, clean, crisp sheets with a high thread count. I'm not trying to sell you on my list. You come up with your own list. But you've all got things that you love about life. I love a New England hazy IPA. That is a delicious beverage. It makes life just happy for me. I love, as a goalie, and I started playing hockey at 38. And I became a goalie at 42 because I thought it was a good decision, having people fire frozen vulcanized rubber at my body. Well, before the game starts, I stick my head into the net and I go, man, I want to play hockey when I was a kid. I get to do this right now. It's one of my favorite things. Making the big save where they go, oh, they all tap the stick. I'm like, it's one of my favorite things. I don't golf very often, but when I do, I mostly hit it left and I mostly hit it right. But every once in a while, I get all of it. And when I crush that golf ball, I'm like, favorite thing list. Let me pause here. As I made this favorite things list, it was remarkable to see what was on there. Most of them didn't cost anything. Most of them are absolutely free, in fact, or cheap. Like nachos are on my favorite things list. I love eating nachos with the cheapest you could buy paste salsa. Like it's glorious to me. They're cheap or free, and I could do those whether I was a gajillionaire or right then when I was 22 years old. That's actually pretty amazing, isn't it? When you think about the quality of life that we have, that we can do that. We can have an amazing quality of life. When you got this favorite things list, here's what else I noticed. Two things in particular. I noticed when I was doing those things that it felt different. It hit different. I think that's what the kids say now. It hit different because it was on my favorite things list. I would pause and go, oh, this is on my favorite things list. And I would appreciate it, and it would grow a little more, and like that little aura would be like, oh. It was a better moment because I recognized that this was on my favorite things list. I might even say it was a micro gratitude moment. I was just grateful that I was doing that one thing for that one moment. Favorite things list. You know what else started to happen, though? I'm like, dude, life is too short for me to not manufacture as many of these things as possible daily. I'm gonna make more of these moments. I'm gonna teach more. I found myself on my favorite things list was to teach, was to coach. I'm like, well, I should probably do that more. If I loved inspiring people at Vector, I was like, I should probably speak more at conferences. I got to sell more so I can speak more. Or I could connect with reps. And when I saw the light bulb go on, I'm like, it's on my list of favorite things. I want to do that more. Becoming aware of it allowed me to manufacture more of those moments. And sometimes they just organically hit, but when they hit different because you made the list. Now, folks, my original list is on probably 28 journals ago. Maybe more, by the way. But you can always keep adding to that list. You might even make it digital so you can keep it with you. But I'd also recommend writing it in your own handwriting. Favorite things list. It's also something you can do so easily with your reps. It takes no, and what a great way to get to know somebody when they share with you things on their favorite things list. John Kane, kicking it over to you, brother.
I love what Rob Chung put in the box. He said sometimes an okay day is a really good day, as one of his biggest takeaways, because I think there's so many times when you're in a day, you're doing things you love, and you're just going through the motions and not realizing it, that awareness piece. So, Rob, I just want to give you a shout out for that. And I love valet parking and quality toilet paper. I think that's sweet. You know, it would be amazing to see, like, what is the group collective favorite things list we could create in Vector? What would that thing look like? And if we could make like a huge banner of that at the next SLC when we're in person, and if it filled like a whole wall of the conference room. I don't know. I'm just having fun with it. But oh man, just love to see some of you all putting your favorite things list in there. Thanks for indulging me, Trent. If you're looking for more requests, I've got them.
All right, more requests. By the way, let me hit on one last thing here, and just kind of dovetailing back to what Rob Chung was saying, folks. One of the reasons, again, I would put this under the banner of gratitude. So when Rob says, "Hey, sometimes you just have a meh day," but you pause and go, "Well, what did I do?" And you take a look at that list and you go, "Actually, today was pretty awesome," right? The reality is, life is not a bunch of front row moments. Life is actually the mundane. Life is the day-to-day. And if we don't find ways to enjoy just the little stuff, can I tell you what I kind of miss now about not running a district office? The things that you take for granted right now, like new reps. Like, are they going to show or aren't they from the recruiting class? Like, little things. I miss having as massive of an impact on individuals, people that, when that podcast came out, wrote on my Facebook wall. I knew them when I was 22. They were only 19, but we're still connected. I made a difference in that kid's life. I'm like, man. What I'm making a case here for is being grateful for the life we currently have. Yeah, while we're trying to upgrade. Yeah, while we're trying to move it forward. Yeah, we want more, and yeah, you're going to be more, but to enjoy what we have right now, that's part of what the favorite things list does for us. And as we live in that place of gratitude, sometimes it also, even if it doesn't shift me into like a place of elation, somebody commented like this, how fired up I got. I can't even help myself. When I start talking about this stuff, it fires me up. It fires me up. And it might fire you up too. Hear me right. If I go through this favorite things list or I engage in some of these favorite things, sometimes even it's enough for me to go, okay, I'm not fired up, but I know my life is good. So even if I don't have this emotional high, it can be valuable for me to just acknowledge, even intellectually, my life is good. And that could be enough for that day. So I don't want to try and sell everybody here on emotionalism, because I don't want us to put too much into that. What I actually do want to say here is that there's value in it, even whether we feel it or not. But more times than not, it does usually pull me into a pretty good place here. John Kane, other thoughts here, other questions, or other softballs? What you got for me?
Well, little decision train's always good. Love little decision train. I'm not sure if you want to touch on that for a
I
moment.
love this. And it's funny because this is also one of those things I think I've covered a gajillion times, and yet I'm like, should I cover it again? And every
Yes,
time I don't,
please.
people are like, why wouldn't you cover that?
Yeah, the train's falling down the tracks. Let's go.
Just in
A lot of
case.
people have not heard this train.
Okay. So the decision train, here's basically the version of it. And I don't want to like tell you guys have heard me talk about fighting with my wife. We don't fight all the time, but if you hear me speak once a year and I talk about fighting with my wife, you go, boy, that guy's marriage isn't very good. The purpose of sharing that is I usually talk about a fight I had with my wife. Or let me tell you about a different time. I was journaling one time. I was like, what just happened and how do I feel about that? And I'm like, well, my wife hates me. I wrote that in my journal. I looked at it. I'm like, well, that's not true. But I really felt at the time, I'm like, well, she must hate me because she's doing this and not doing that. And I'm not getting what I need here or want over there. And because of that, we're not in a good spot. I'm like, well, that's not entirely true. If I don't become consciously aware here, those feelings can unfortunately take me to a rough spot. The reason I like showing the decision train, especially to reps, right, 17, 18 years old, let's call it, right, is feelings typically are driving the train. And it's not just when you're young, but this is really where we feel those emotions are just so rampant. They're all over the place. And the challenge being is if people don't understand that feelings can't be relied upon to drive our train. For most of us, if we feel good, we do the right things, and then we can make new decisions, rinse and repeat. And this works as long as we're feeling good. The challenge with that is, folks, Christy and I are going to celebrate 21 years of marriage. I could tell you, it's not because it's just been all green lights and rainbows and unicorns. There are hard days in there. There are hard days this year. And if I allow feelings to dictate what I'm going to do or not do, or even actions I might even withhold because I'm not feeling great, then, folks, I can't succeed long term. And I'm going to say this in anything. If I'm going to allow feelings to drive the train, I'm eventually going to quit everything. Or I'll sabotage it, or destroy it, or just walk away. If feelings are the only thing driving the train. Let me say this. If feelings alone were driving the train, my relationship with my dad would be over. There was a time where we had a real rough, very rough season. Pretty significant challenge. And I felt pretty justified in like just letting this not happen, letting the relationship go. And there are people, you and I both know, deep in their 50s, 60s, that are holding grudges, for example, because of one thing that happened one time and that feeling is soured. And because they felt a certain way, they acted a certain way, and it's reinforced it, and it's kind of continued to go. And they might wind up not where they want to be, not doing what they want to do, or the relationship's not where they want them to be. At some point, with both my wife, with my dad, with my kids, I have to decide I'm going to have my decisions and my commitments drive the train. And I show this to kids all the time, especially trainees. Why? They should know that they're going to feel like quitting at some point, because they are. How do I know? Because you did. Me too. Right? If that's normal, though, and actually okay, remember back to what Drew was saying earlier. If their expectations are the reality, hey, folks, at some point you're going to not feel like getting on the phone. That's okay. Happens to all of us. I don't have to want to get on the phone. I just sometimes got to get on the phone. If I get on the phone and make the calls, I'll get demos. I get demos, I'm going to sell. If I sell, I'm going to feel good. This is called acting my way into feeling. And this is discipline. I don't feel like going to class. Why not? I don't have to feel like going to class to just go. And so many of you've done this before with the gym. I don't have to feel like going to the gym to just go to the gym. And sometimes after going to the gym, it's so funny. Going into the gym, I'm like, ugh. Some of you have seen those memes or the GIFs, right? After the gym, you're like, I'm so glad I went. I'm so glad I went. I feel great. You act your way into feeling. There's been times, fights that I'm having with my wife. I'm like, if I don't turn this around right now, it won't get turned around. She's, I guess you could say my wife is a little stubborn, right? And I can be stubborn too. We all can. Point being, when I'm recognizing this, don't decide to have my actions line up with my decisions, my commitments, that's not going to a good spot, folks. So why do I have the hard conversation with my wife and try to bring things around? Or if we've got weeds in our relationship we need to pull, I'm not going to wait until I feel awesome to have that conversation. I'm going to have that conversation because I want my actions to line up with my decisions. And eventually, the feelings will come back around. In fact, I can tell you this, at 20 years, my wife and I can now have a fight. And I can say, honey, what we're wrestling with right here, this is a 20-year issue. We're not going to get it resolved tonight. Here's what I know. I know I love you. I know you love me. And I think we're going to feel differently about it tomorrow. We tend to have these conversations after 10 at night. I'm like, hey, if we just agree we love each other right now and have our actions line up with our decision to love each other, whether we feel like it or not, I'm pretty sure tomorrow we're going to feel better. And we do. Emotions come back down. My intelligence goes back up. And I've got a shot of rescuing her or letting her rescue me, as the case might be. Decisions, actions, and feelings. Folks, hear me right. I'm not saying that feelings aren't important. I'm just saying they can't be the only thing. We cannot simply follow our appetite. We cannot follow what we feel like doing only. If we want to succeed long term, folks, we're all fired up to watch all of Drew's stuff right now. Will you feel fired up in 13 days? And I don't want you to get frustrated about the fact that I might in 13 days not do this, so I don't know if I should try. I know that this is also a thing, right? I'm suggesting, man, the first day you go for a walk is a good day. The first day you go to the gym, it's a good day. Act your way into feeling, keep doing it for a while, and see what doesn't come out of that. I like showing this to reps so that they don't quit the first time that they don't feel good. I like showing this to the TLA, because at some point they're not going to feel good. You think right about what they call the death zone, right about you get in November, December, right? They've been doing this for a while. They're not as fired up as they were in the summer. They might get sick. Why? Because they're run down physically, maybe even emotionally. They go to Thanksgiving, eating food that they don't normally eat, whatever. We get sick. A lot of students get sick right around that November, December window. That's why one of the reasons why we call it the death zone. For us to not be covering the decision train, we're inviting disaster. For them to know that, hey, not only is this okay and we just need to act our way into feeling, it's okay to not feel fired up all the time. But if we keep doing the right things, eventually the feelings come back. And for them to know then that they can act their way into feeling, and that they've done it before, this gives us a shot of saving people. John, is there anything else there on decision tree that I'm leaving out there other than colorful stories about ice cream? You can go see the other videos. My daughter's on this call here today, so I'm not doing that one.
I think that's a good move. I love it. That's great. Thanks for indulging me to be able to put a couple of requests in. This is kind of cool.
That's how we do it.
So where are you thinking about taking us on the relationship journey today?
Well, this is where I was hoping to spend a little more time. I think we will with an additional masterclass on relationships specifically. Here's what I might suggest. Most of us are not super intentional with our relationships. Most of us are not choosing who we're spending time with. Most of us are not, when I say choosing, I'm saying most of us are not intentionally at the beginning of the year or any season saying, this person makes me better. I'm going to make sure I get time with them in this frequency. Or we're going to get 3 double dates with that couple over the year. Christy and I have been doing this for years, by the way. It's just being intentional. As intentional as you are about everything else in your life, what if you brought some of that to relationships? Let me give you an example. You know a person that when you haven't spent some time with them, maybe it's been a while, 2-3 months even, but when you get together with them or even talk to them on the phone, it's like time hasn't passed. Now, folks, I used to have a lot more of those when I was younger because all relationships require quality and quantity time to move forward. But the thing I have less and less of is quality and quantity time as I get older. That doesn't mean I can't have robust relationships. I just have to be very judicious about who gets that time. So here's what I might suggest. And I've done this, I'm going to say 68 times, maybe 100, without hyperbole, by the way. I'm going to do something called the Who's in the Front Row of Your Life. Show some jazz hands if you've seen this before. All right, we're going to do it again. If you've done this before, by the way, I'm going to suggest this actually has greater value than if you've never seen this, right? Because if you've done this before, you might see who's outside or inside based on those relationships, based on those decisions. I have neat slides for this, but instead of slides, I'm going to go analog with your permission. If I have your permission, give me jazz hands. All right, here's what we're going to do. So I'm going to put this in my journal like I do every time. I'm going to put a little circle, and I'm going to invite you to do the same thing. If you got a piece of paper, that's great. Can you see me? Me in the middle of my page, in the middle of my journal page. And I'm going to write 8 initials that represent people. And your challenge will be to write your 8 most important relationships. And I'm going to give you a couple moments to do that now. I'll do the same, by the way. Your 8 most important relationships. All right. I just got done, but I've done this a gajillion times. Give me jazz hands if you're not done yet. You're like, oh my, no way, I'm not even close to. Okay, you can keep going. Over the years, and you can drop your comments in the chat if you'd like to, but over the years, we've heard things like, this is so hard. People will say, like, I don't even know if I have 8 close relationships. By the way, I've also heard that same person report later, years later, that they were able to remedy that it became much easier the second time because they got more intentional with watering those other greener grasses, watering those relationships. I hear things like, it's so hard to come up with the last 2. Not because you've got like 8 people that could fill this. You're like, I've got 3 brothers and sisters. How do I decide who makes it in and who doesn't? On this list, I have to leave one of my brothers out every time, and at least one of my step parents and one of my actual like blood parents, like on my top 8, not in my top 8. Oh no! I have one person on this list that I'm not married to or share DNA with in my top 8 that beat out people that have been close family friends to me. Actually, more than friend. I would actually say chosen family by the time you're in my top 8. Top 8. What's emerging for you as you come up with this list? In fact, some of you were disappointed you didn't get to put them in the front row of your life. That's okay. We've got a second row, and the second row is pretty good. So why don't you draw a circle around that or a box? I'm going to use a circle in this case. Change it up. And I'm going to let you put 16 more people. You ready? All right, so whoever didn't make the cut last time, they got a spot. They got a ticket. That's good. And you can write 16 more initials down representing the next layer of your life. Ooh, first time here for one of these guys. That's interesting. Throw jazz hands up, by the way, if you've got some vector people in your top 24. Isn't that remarkable? Isn't that amazing? Isn't that crazy? It's actually kind of crazy. I don't think it's just because we catch on when we're young. I think it's just who Vector attracts and who we wind up hanging out with. I will invite some chat here at this point. Anything that's emerging for you that you go, wow, on? Lauren says it's almost all my list, Vector people. I don't want you to feel bad about that or ashamed. I know some people are like, oh, I should probably get out more. Well, maybe. We do spend a lot of time here, especially when you're young, right? I don't think there's anything wrong with that. All right, Sam says I should be reaching out to these people more. Does that resonate with anybody here? We've heard this a lot over the years. It's like almost regret or buyer's remorse of how we're spending our time. You know, folks, whether we use 8 or 10 or 6 in that front row, the reality is we've got a limited amount of time in our lives that's discretionary, a limited amount of time that we can dedicate to people, a limited number of people we can call on the way home. And if we've never considered that front row, we might not be giving those people that we love most front row time. Beyond front row time, how about at least front row attention? Because something like the random text of awesome doesn't take a lot of time, but a little water there goes a long way. A little water there goes a long way. One of the people in my top 8, my dad used to bounce in and out of my top 8 a lot. I'd be like, no, he's in, no, he's out. I do love my dad a lot. I can tell you this. My dad and I talk every Friday. Why? We made a decision at some point. We really wanted to work at our relationship. And it's easy to talk. It's also easy not to talk. But we said, let's just talk every Friday. I don't care what time. When I'm going home from work or when the day's done, or if the day's off, roughly around 2 to 5 Eastern, we talk. And my dad, I don't think ever made outgoing phone calls. He does to me now. I mean, I'm saying the first couple of years we did this, I did 98% of the calling. But now he pursues me. And we've got a relationship right now that's robust, that is outstanding, that has frankly weathered some hard things, some hard decisions, some mistakes, I might even say, that we were able to weather that storm because I initiated. And I'm glad I didn't just limp through life saying, well, I don't need my dad. Screw that. Some of you on this Zoom don't have your dad to be able to even say that about. How tragic would it be if I'm just like, well, I don't need to hang out with my dad. Folks, I'm not trying to tell you who to value or how to value it. But here's what I would challenge you to ask yourself. If somebody right now is outside of that top 8 that maybe once was in your top 8 or should be, if some part of you saying, boy, I really wish they were in my top 8, I would encourage you to bring some of that creative brain space of yours and manufacture ways to connect, to get unstuck, to move that relationship forward. What starts to happen when you start watering that lawn is it becomes green, it becomes beautiful. It comes up again. Sometimes, by the way, Joshua just said, someone made my second circle that I've never met in person, met him in March. That is so powerful, by the way. Again, to the point of being able to make connections even virtually. Most of the people I'm connecting with these days, even if I live in the same town with them with quarantine, I've been able to keep those up this way. And I get some Zoom fatigue, hear me right? But even with poker night on Sunday nights, that's been pretty sweet. We had a few of these via Zoom and a poker app, and we were able to connect, which is also my favorite things list. What's nice is that you start to double up on the boxes. And I was able to have a favorite things moment, playing poker, but also connecting with friends. But deciding who to connect with has been influenced by this exercise. Who do I need to spend more time with? Now, folks, we're not going to take the time to do this now, but I'm encouraging you before the day is done, maybe when the Zoom call is done in 21 minutes, take the time to do your vector-specific one. Who's in the front row of my vector business? Who's in the front row? And what I loved about doing this as a division manager, I had reps in there. I had my pilot manager and staff in there, but I also had my region manager. Who's in the front row of your vector life? And to encourage you, if you're like, that Rob Chung guy's got some really good ideas, you can connect with Rob Chung. If you're like, Micah Bromwitz's got some really good stuff in here, you're like, you can connect with Micah Bromwitz. Funny story, I reached out to Dan Cassetta, Scott Dennis, and Earl Kelly, just three of the, I think, 20 people I reached out to. In 1995, I was a first-year Canadian district manager. Nobody knew me from Adam. And those three guys reached back. I forgot to share this on the podcast with Dan, by the way. Dan Cassetta not only reached back to me, took the time to invest into me. Back in that day, you didn't have a Dropbox that you could just share. You didn't have 49 files like Drew did. Dan Cassetta sent me a manila folder this thick to my office in Montreal of all of his programs, all of his gold, all of his key staff stuff, sent it all to me, and started a relationship that we still enjoy today. That is 25 years later. Dan Cassetta is investing into a kid. He was the star of the Cutco world. I think second only to John Kane back then. I'm saying he was absolutely crushing it, and he took the time to reach back to me. He wasn't the only one. So did Scott Dennis. So did Earl Kelly. Now, folks, maybe not everybody has the time to reach back to you. I'm pretty sure that this group, if all of you inundate Drew, he's not going to be able to connect with all of you. But find your Drew, find your level, find somebody that you can connect with. Find somebody that's crushing it. John Kane?
Did you know that Dan's here?
No, I did not.
Yeah, he's here. He just posted in the chat.
He's like,
he was emceeing the DVM, and he's here. So he just wrote hard copies. I had to go to the copy place to make copies back then.
But the fact he did it, he took a couple hours to reach out and send me all of his stuff.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
And for the record, Dan mostly dominated all of the 90s. So
he really did.
Make that clear. I think I beat him for a push week, maybe once. I don't even think we competed. But Dan, so Dan wrote in the chat, everyone called Drew. I love it. This is great.
I love it. Drew's phone number is.
This is a fun session over here, TV.
This is good. We're having a good time. We're having so much fun that RMs are coming over. Maseko's like, post his number. John Kane actually at SLC. If you go watch the recording from 2 years ago, put my phone number out in the intro, and I still get text from him. I'm like, how'd you get the number, folks? Here's what here's what I'm encouraging you here with the relationships, folks. Be intentional about your relationships. Kindred spirit. You meet somebody that's like, you're a kindred spirit. I met a guy at a virtual conference. We've never met in person. He's not quite made my top 24, but I really like this guy. Like, he just popped onto this this event that I was running, and he said something awesome, and it was fun, and it was like we were doing this whole appreciative inquiry thing anyway, but he was bringing idea after idea that changed the entire event. I'm like, I want to know this guy. I reached out to him, and we've had 4 phone calls since then. Guy I met at a one-off conference. Lives in Buffalo, by the way, Josh. Great guy. Might have to introduce you to him. Here's what I'm getting at is sometimes you just know, and you meet that kindred spirit, you go deep. Dan Cassetta just put up a 919 number for Drew. I'm pretty sure that's not his number. 919? Don't even. We're recording. This masterclass is going swimmingly, by the way. Folks, here's what I'm recommending you do is double down on your relationships. You just never know where you're going to be. And folks, it takes almost no time to send out a quick text. We talk about the random call of awesome or the random text of awesome. Just if you're thinking about somebody, don't just think about them. Give them the gift of having thought about them. A quick text, a quick voice memo, a quick phone call. If I was to call Devin Mitchell, I'd be like, Devin, it's Trent. He'd be like, what's up? I'm like, thank you for hitting the green button. I'm simply calling to tell you I love you. That is all. He's like, that's awesome. I'm like, I know. I got to go, man. And he goes, yeah. What's so fun about this is that he might hit the green button next time, too, because it might be a random call of awesome, number 1. Number 2, it didn't take a long time. Number 3, how does he feel? Amazing. But here's what's also crazy. How do I feel? I feel amazing, too. Some people go, well, Trent, when do you do the random call of awesome? Let me tell you when. Sometimes I do the random call of awesome because I'm feeling awesome. I want to make sure I spread some of that sunshine around. Sometimes I do the random call of awesome because I feel terrible. I don't want to get a little sunshine. Can I be honest? I'm like, I don't feel good. So I'll send out a few texts. I'll send out just, hey, thinking of you. Just want to let you know I love you. It's amazing. Here's what's also great. You send enough of these out, you start getting some. People be like, Trent, this is Kyle Smith. This is the random call of awesome. I'm like, it's the random call of awesome. It's so much fun. What happens when you keep investing into relationships like this, folks? You become rich. And I hope you all become independently wealthy, yes, rich. But here's what I also hope, is that you are wildly rich in relationships as well. Wildly rich. Download Moments of Grace, apparently. I'm not making any money on that Chris Naku app, by the way, but it is pretty awesome. John Kane, thought?
I just want to call attention to Tina Marie's post. I just find it fascinating when you have someone of Tina Marie's skill and tenure, the level that she applies herself. I've literally seen her in maybe 10 to 12 sessions with you, and to see her reflecting back some of these things, and I just thought this was powerful. She shared that because of this exercise, she made the decision to call both parents and have individual calls versus just the two of them. She chose to go on vacations with them over doing things with friends, and she's so glad she did. As many of us know, she lost her dad 2 years ago, but was able to make so many more memories with them that I wouldn't have done if it wasn't for this exercise. The silver cup just tarnishes on your shelf. And there's every award, every sword, every trip, that's a memory. Those are things that, they're exciting when they happen. But what Tina Marie is sharing is the type of thing that profoundly impacts your mental state for the rest of your life. The pride you feel in the way you handled your most important relationships. And I just had to call attention to that. I know there's a lot of funny stuff going on. I like funny stuff. But profound. And Tina Marie, I just want to thank you and so many of our veteran DMs for showing up huge today and being students of this stuff for a decade. So if you're hearing some of this for the first time, we literally have people that have heard some of these basics 8 to 10 times. And I shared it before. Each time you step in here, your life may be in a little different place. And there's something different you're going to get. So TB, I was making a joke earlier today. I said, well, there's 10 commandments and they're the same 10 for like thousands of years, regardless of your spiritual background. But they didn't add to it. They didn't change it. They just keep talking about the same 10. And I think in some way, some of the greatest hits that you've essentially centered on, without getting too fancy or complicated, I think have just been such a foundation for me, for sure, and for so many. And I just want to express gratitude to you for kind of staying the course here. It's been awesome to see.
Thanks, John. I appreciate that. If we just try and wrap up a little bit of the day here, folks, if we say, just try to put a bow on it. When Drew Frank is going deep in terms of thinking about your business, right, in Ken Sandy's construct there, he's talking about your values. You becoming clear on your values. What am I about? Hey, when it comes to Focus 5, is Drew clear on what he's all about? Yes. So you becoming clear on it gives you a shot to actually function in that. Knowing what you believe in PRs allows you a shot to function in that, right? Remembering what you're about gives you a shot at having the discipline to do it. So yes, we're encouraging you to pin down what you believe in all these different areas. By the way, that True North exercise, you go, well, I don't want the 6. You come up with your own 6. Some of you on the call, Tina Marie was at one in particular where we did a vector version of the Wheel of Life. And you could change those. But coming up with what you believe in personal recruiting, with what you believe in the recruiting process, with what you believe in the training seminar, with what you believe about the Leadership Academy, with what you believe about developing your staff, with what you believe about deploying other people and constantly growing. Pinning down what you believe in those areas gives you an opportunity to function in those areas. the second piece of that to check in. How am I doing? Hey, how am I feeling? Because if I'm not right, if I'm not in a good spot, no amount of skill or talent will be enough. How am I doing? And folks, hear me right. Part of the reason I show the decision train often is because sometimes people hear me saying, well, it means if I'm not feeling great, I don't go in. That's actually not it at all, folks. We're high-level businesses here. And running those sometimes requires us to function when we don't feel great. For us to rock out even when we don't feel good actually is somewhat noble. And for you to become consciously aware of the fact that, hey, I didn't feel good today and I still did the thing. I hope that you're celebrating that, and I hope that you're not celebrating that alone. And that's that third piece, is making sure that we're keeping those relationships moving forward, that we are reaching out to those that we're serving, our AMs, our reps, that we're reaching out to those that are serving us. By the way, have you even considered recently the fact that your DVM might use a random call of awesome? Or a, how can I support you today? Hey, with the staff meeting coming up, what can I do to make that more awesome? Watering those relationships, serving. All three of these pieces of the pie are something that I'm going to talk about next year, and then probably after that again. And we'll probably have to have another session even before that on Masterclass. Look, this is the work. Just because we've spoken about it doesn't mean that the work is done. I teach this stuff all the time. I'm still working on navigating my emotional state. I teach this stuff all the time. I'm still working on making sure my relationships are good. I talk about this stuff all the time. I've been keenly aware of my core values in major areas, and I'm still trying to align my behavior with what I believe. So yeah, this is lifelong work, but it's so good. And what starts to happen is you start looking at this and you go, there's fruit here. There's results. I've moved forward. And why is that valuable? Well, if Maslow's hierarchy of needs has anything to say about it, it would say that when you're making progress as a human, it gives you hope. It gives you hope. And a lot of people in this room, Drew was talking earlier today about being like high performance driven people. And sometimes driven people get stuck in a performance loop or a results loop. And unless I'm winning number one, if you're not first, you're last. And I'm here to tell you, folks, if you're making progress in these areas, you're growing. You're moving forward. And I appreciate this note here from Hans. He's saying, you managed to make me feel empowered and challenged at the same time. That is my strong desire with these sessions, is that wherever you're at, we want to challenge you to keep going and give you permission to be exactly where you're at. Exactly where you're at. Do I wish you're in another spot? Yeah, in some cases I do. I wish you're in a different spot. I wish it wasn't hard sometimes. But folks, it is. And we also share this. For some of you that are particularly going through a tough time right now, a tough season, my best seasons of growth come through those adverse times. The hard days seem to be the ones where I grow the most. Now, hear me right. That doesn't mean I like them more than the other days. I'd rather have just sunny days. I'd rather just be on the mountaintop. But I can tell you that the deepest character lessons that I've learned and forged have been in the valley, not on the mountaintop. So do not despair if you're in the valley. Just keep moving. But let me also share this. Don't do it alone. You got too many vector buddies out here to throw a hand at you when you need it. I'll be one. Facebook, direct message me, whatever. Text me if you go and get my number from the recording. We want to be here to support you as a sales support staff. It's why we're here. Figure out who your tribe is. And if you don't know who that is, just let them know. Maria, you're my people. You're part of my tribe. Anthony, you're part of my tribe too. Ryan, you're part of my tribe. Now, some of them will say, I don't have time to be in your tribe. That's okay. We're not worried about the ones who don't get it. We're going to do it for the ones that do. Folks, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the opportunity we have here at Vector. I'm grateful for the leadership that you're bringing in challenging times. I'm aware. But I'm also grateful that 18 to 21-year-olds this year got a chance to work with you. I said it on the podcast, I'll say it again. I believe that we could change the world without hyperbole. We get enough people every single year. We keep spinning them out. Hundreds of thousands of vectorized, vector-trained people out there. I think we can make a difference. You're doing important work. Yeah, again, I hope that you become very wealthy doing that. But Jim Rohn would say, don't do it for the money you're going to make, do it for the person that you're becoming. And 27 years in, here I am still enjoying the person I'm becoming, the dad I'm becoming, the husband I'm becoming, the contributor at our church, the son I'm becoming, all the above. Folks, we're excited to be able to engage in this process here with you. I want to make sure that we give just some last shout outs here. In fact, also, we've been giving gifts, John, in case you didn't see us earlier. The way you're feeling right now, I would encourage you to drop 1 or 2 words in the chat box, because we also want to communicate to your region managers kind of what they saw here today. The survey will come out in the next 24 hours. Please do fill the survey out. That said, I would love to have in real time just some thoughts of how you're feeling. What is your current emotional state? And you can drop that right in the chat box. We would love to create another word cloud with that. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that, folks. It's been a really great day. Last thoughts, John Kane, questions, comments?
Well, I can't help but be so excited, not just for the future master classes, but what's ahead for SLC next week. And I love that you showed the podcast. I got to tell you, if you have not listened to the podcast of the people that are going to be speaking to you next week, what a way to put depth and breadth into your experience with them on stage. To know their story, to know their history is powerful, and also to know where they're coming from. I just think that it gives such context, and it's an advantage we've really never had for an SLC ever before. It's a start, and it's one of the things that I think that makes this year's presentation especially exceptional. So I would just encourage you to get out while you're walking or while you're working out. Just get those podcasts in and come ready next week. Come rested next week. Come ready to just suck the marrow, to quote Jeff Bry, out of this. And I really just want to say thank you, obviously, to Drew and to John Wasserman and to Dan Cassetta, who masterfully emceed the DVM session today, all the speakers, and to you, Trent, for really architecting the SLC content. I want to thank our staff and our team. Shelby, thank you for being here today and supporting us, and for the tremendous things that you've done as a leader to support so many. John Fiacco, we have Dana, we have Loretta, we have Nikki, we have Raquel on our team. We just have so many people, and Scott backing us up, just doing great work to make all this happen. So I want to thank our team just for a moment here. Anyway, it's exciting what's ahead, and we are going to, we're going to keep bringing great content, and we are just excited for the opportunity to connect in this way and to keep getting better at it. So that's all I got, TB. Thank you, man.
It's excellent. Folks, we decided instead of going long here that, again, I have no regrets about our other speakers here today. It's just we're on the right track in terms of giving them all 90 minutes at the regular master classes that are coming up here. So, folks, we're going to end here a couple minutes early. Free you up to do whatever it is that you've got going on here today. I can't wait until next Tuesday to kind of do it again. This is like just the pregame here. Wait till we get to SLC next week and get some of those nuggets. I'm going to stick around. I got nowhere to be right now, so I'd love to hang in with each of you for just a little bit. If you've got to go, we're officially dismissed. We're going to stop the recording right now, in fact. But, folks, I'm so excited about SLC and the way it's starting here. So